And I'm honestly of the opinion of like, when you can clock the game, you should 100% play it. I rewinded it back and I was like, let me hear what she said again. She's like, oh, this month I want to make 50K. And why that was so pivotal for me was because that was the dream graduate job, was to get like a 50K investment banking starting role. So for her to say she wants to make 50K in 1 month, I was like, oh, I'm definitely doing something. I'm in the wrong field here. People can make 50K in a month. My worst case scenario was to live in a extremely luxury development in Johannesburg. Even when I've spoken about this, people are trying to give me slack. I was like, whatever you think, like, I don't actually really care, because I don't, because go to Nigeria. I'm actually really quite passionate about that, because I think that people put the onus in the wrong places, because really and truly, a lot of people who are kind of like, get out of our country, the country would suffer, because this is basic economics. You need more inflow into the country.
So Lamide, how many streams of income do you have? Welcome to Gold Standard Time with me, Richard, bringing you stories of innovation, reinvention, and self-development from the Middle East and from right here in the capital of ambition, Dubai. My goal is to inspire and challenge anyone that's dreaming, doing, and pushing for more. So let's get into it. So my very special guest today is Lamide Elizabeth. She is an award-winning finance expert and entrepreneur who helps people build wealth by seeing the world as an unlimited place for opportunity. She's the founder and CEO of WNB Group, which is a media-powered investment company helping investors access wealth-building opportunities across real estate and private investing, which includes, among other things, the excellent Building Wealth No Borders podcast, which is dedicated to international investing and multiple income streams. Lamide Elizabeth, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. You know, we changed the podcast name
to what again?
Building Wealth Without Borders, because apparently building wealth with no borders doesn't make sense. No, not doesn't make sense, because it does, but apparently it's like the incorrect way to say it.
So I did actually notice this. I've seen it in some places as with no and some places as without.
Yeah.
But so the correct one is?
Well, the now one is without.
Okay, well,
yeah.
I would
No, that's not your fault.
But
that's
cool.
Just
But I usually think it's more polite to let the guests introduce themselves. So how would you introduce yourself?
I think you did a great job, actually, to be fair. You kind of summed up everything.
I don't think I did, you know. I think it was, sorry to interrupt you, it was actually kind of difficult because there are things I'm missing out. Didn't talk about your ex-banking career. I didn't talk about pen. Didn't talk about any of that stuff. And a bunch of other things as well, but please.
Okay, so hi everyone, my name is Lamide. I'm an entrepreneur and an investor. I used to work in finance, in banking for less than 4 years across the UK and Dubai. And yeah, currently I am the CEO of WNB Group, which has 3 arms, if you could say. So it's WNB Media, where we host a podcast, WNB Realty, where we help investors become property owners, and WNB Capital, where we basically raise funds or gather funds to do certain things. And I'm also the co-founder of the Professional Network, or now currently going through a different stage, rebranding as The Pen by Marina Pearl. So we are actually opening up a podcast studio and workspace here in Dubai. And I do that with my co-founder, Sheen, and I'm an investor as well, angel investor, property investor. And yeah.
Thank you very much. You see how you had a lot more to say than I did, but it's all good. So born and raised in Hackney in London? No. Not born, but raised. You were born in the US? Canada, yes. Okay, born in Canada, grew up in Hackney in London. Mm-hmm. So growing up, what was your definition back then of what wealth is?
Growing up, I don't even think I had a definition of wealth. I don't even think I really had a concept of wealth, to be honest. If anything, I think in my area where I grew up, we had my mum's friend, and they only had one kid, one son, and he used to get everything that, like, when there was, is it Heelys or Wheelies? What was that trainers, that bulky trainers with the heels at the bottom? I think it's Heelys. Yeah, so like when Heelys came out, he'd get Heelys. He had all like the latest gadgets and stuff, and that was my only definition of like, oh, this person definitely has more than we did. But my mom kind of just always chucked it down to, well, you know, they have 1 kid, 2 parents. We have 4 kids. There's only 1 of me. So I didn't really actually have a definition of wealth. I don't even know if I really even heard that term being used. Maybe I knew rich, but not necessarily wealth. So I didn't really have a definition of wealth growing up.
Okay. What does wealth mean to you today?
Wealth today is choice.
Okay.
Yeah, I would actually define wealth as choice. Yeah.
Choice. Okay, we'll come back to that. But it's a slightly vague answer, but I can kind of see where you're going. But so university in London, you went to LSE. At that time, I think you started getting into property investing and YouTube. Tell us about how you made the decision to go down that path.
Okay, so I used to I think I started, my friend from school, Jennifer, introduced me to YouTube in like year 9. I remember I was like one day after dance class and we went to her house and she was watching It's Judy's Life, which is like this family vlog channel. But like ever since then, I have been watching YouTube a lot. And I think deep down, I always wanted to be a YouTuber, but I didn't really know what I would YouTube about.
Okay.
Because there was a lot of family vloggers. There were like your Zoella, Joe Sugg, like that group of people who would do things together. But only as I started to get to A-levels did I start to see the emergence of like college, like American university content creators where people were like vlogging their, I think they're called study tubers now.
Okay.
People who are like in education, maybe starting a business or just like, studying. So I was like, oh, maybe I should do one about that. And I think at that time as well, there was like Nissy T, Courtney Daniela,
Wow,
people
you really
who
know
were...
the names of these
Of the people who I was
old-timers.
watching, of course,
Okay,
yeah. People black women who were smart and who were like, doing well. So I started watching those people. So I was like, oh, actually, there's no one who has, when I got into LSE, I was like, there's no black female YouTuber from the London School of Economics. I was like, oh, maybe I'll do that then. And actually, in my first year of university, we were going to do like this 3-group YouTube channel because that was also quite popular on YouTube at the time, like 3 girls like
what would you have been talking
channel.
about?
We actually recorded like 3 or 4 videos, and I don't know what we were talking about.
Are they
Maybe
up?
like
Can we find them?
The first video actually didn't even come out. It didn't go out, thank God. But I don't even know what we're talking about. Probably just not. We were smart girls, so probably like a little bit of nonsense with a little bit of like smart stuff. But yeah. So, but then that didn't really happen, and then, but I did take a gap year, and in my gap year, I saved like £10,000. I remember someone in my first year of university was kind of like, oh, like, I'm really thinking about getting a property and stuff like that. And I'll be like, oh yeah, like I actually created a roadmap of what I wanted my life to be like during A-levels. And I remember like I was ticking things off, and then the next steps was kind of like house, a job in the bank at City, in the city in Canary Wharf at JP Morgan. Then it was like marriage, kids, or whatever. So I was like looking at this path. I've got to this point, like the next sort of thing to do is a house. So I was like, okay, cool, maybe I should actually start looking into it. But it was at the back of my mind, but I knew I had the money for it. I knew I had money, but I didn't actually know how much houses cost. I remember when I first searched, and I thought £10,000 was a lot. And I looked for houses, and I was like, there's nothing I'm getting with £10,000. I didn't really understand the concept of like mortgages and stuff at that time. Okay. But then I went to an event, and there was this lady talking, who's basically like a friend now. She's actually like my most viewed guest on my podcast, and she was talking about her property portfolio and stuff. And so I kind of went up to her and was like, I really want to learn more about what you do, how you've done it. And so what I did at that time was I started exchanging my time for knowledge. So I would work she had 2 networks that she was running, the Black Property Network and the Propel Network, which is like a female property network. And I'd basically say, I'll work for free because I just want to be in the room and learn about property. And that's how I started learning about it. And
I'll just stop you there. It's so interesting how many people have a similar story.
You think?
In the sense that at some point in life, they decided to like do whatever it took to be in the room, whether it was spend money to be in the room, whether it was like clean or like, I don't know, clean the floor, or just do some sort of service job just to be around people who did the things that they wanted to do in the future. And I think it's really so important to kind of always put yourself forward to be around people who have what you want or are where you want to be. So no, sorry, I just, as you were speaking, I just was like, that's actually, I hear so many people who are successful mention that as a real key step in their journey, which at the time maybe seemed small, but and again, I don't know what you're going to go on to say, but eventually the dots align to kind of ensure that that was like an important moment. But please, no, so you carry on.
No, you're right. And what being in the room does is it changes your mindset of what's possible. Because when you're not in the room, you're not hearing the conversations and you're not hearing people normalize things that you may think are abnormal. But when you get into the room and you see so many people and they're having a conversation about something and they're discussing it, like, I don't know, how you would be discussing football with your mates or how you'd be discussing whatever, you then your perspective starts to shift. And so you start to think, actually, this is actually possible. So speaking of the rooms, I remember one of the pivotal moments for me was there was a young black girl, I think maybe she was 25 at the time, and she was talking about how she had just bought her first property. I was like, oh my God, 25. And she was like, when she was telling us, I went up to her after and she was telling us the secret. She was like, technically, you don't actually need to have all the money up front, because when you actually go through the process, it takes 6 months to close. And in that 6 months, think about how much you could save once you have a job, right? And so I remember her saying that. So I was like, okay, so maybe I can actually get started earlier than I initially thought. And so that was kind of the path. And then, eventually I started vlogging right at the end of my LSE journey, because then COVID happened. So I probably had like 1 or 2 vlogs of me at LSE, and then it was like, okay, well, now I'm starting my job and then vlogging that.
And when you did start vlogging and start doing YouTube, what was the purpose? Was it to make money? Was it as another stream of income? Was it just to share knowledge? Like, what do you have in mind?
So actually, before I started YouTube, I was so afraid that, I don't know, nobody would watch or anything like that. So I actually started with LinkedIn because that was where my strengths were. I still kind of did feel like on YouTube, a lot of the successful creators were in like the beauty and fashion space, but I was like, okay, but LinkedIn is actually a space for people who have professional achievements or academic achievements. So I started to do like articles and just write stuff on LinkedIn, and they started to do well. So then I was like, okay, guys, I've made this channel. If you subscribe, if I have maybe like 500 subscribers or something like that, maybe less, maybe like 100 subscribers, I will publish my first YouTube video. So I kind of eased my way into it by starting with a platform that for me felt less daunting.
Okay.
And one of the main reasons that took me over the edge is whilst I was this was still first year of university, because I remember I was still in my uni accommodation, I was watching this hair YouTuber, Natural Nisi, and she was like, okay, this month I want to make 50K. And like whatever, she's just talking about writing her goals for the month. I think this was maybe January. She was writing her goals for the month. She's like, this month I want to make 50K, blah, blah, blah. And I remember I was just like doing my uni work and just going on. I was like, wait, hold on a second. I rewinded it back and I was like, let me hear what she said again. She's like, oh, this month I want to make 50K. I was like, and I went to the comment section and other people were like, did she say 50K this month? I was like, oh my God, she said 50K this month. And why that was so pivotal for me was because that was the dream graduate job, was to get like a 50K investment banking starting role. So for her to say she wants to make 50K in 1 month, I was like, oh, I'm definitely doing something. I'm in the wrong field here. People can make 50K in a month. And so that's when I was like, yeah, I need to get online because there's clearly money here.
Okay, interesting. So you did end up going into banking. How did you see going into banking? Did you see it as something that was going to get you out of where you were? Did you see it as something that you were going to do and never look back? Like, how were you seeing that decision?
So I think whilst I was in university, and the thing is with university as well, especially at the kind of university that I was at, everyone is kind of uniform in our thinking. So like at LSE, we are like the investment banking churning out university. Everybody wants to go into banking. And so like just even in terms of the amount of internships I did whilst I was at university, people at LSE, we came into uni already having applied, already having had internships. So if you came in and you were clueless about spring weeks or internships, once you got to LSE, a fire would be lit up your ass, because that's what Freshers Week, where everyone else in other universities are partying and we were applying. So you come into this university and everyone is kind of trying to get into like the same places and stuff. So at that point, I think my goal would have probably just been, and I'm going to all these spring weeks, and what is being put in front of me as success is someone who has been in the bank for 10 years, or someone who made managing director at like 35 or stuff like that, or like she's a black woman, like she looks cute or whatever, and like she's like relatively senior senior in the bank. So that was what was being pushed as an image of success. So I think that was what my image of success was. So that was what I initially wanted. But during my internship, at JP Morgan, I remember we were having like drinks. They always make you do these things where that you meet all the senior people and stuff. And one thing about corporate people, once the drinks start flowing, they just start, like, everything just starts coming out. Like, they forget that, the interns are in the room. And I remember they were just having a conversation about money, and they were basically just saying that, like it's not enough. Like, and these were, like, VPs plus, right? Like, it's not enough. They were complaining, and they were saying that, like, not in a, like, super negative way, but they were just like, oh, my God, no, these hedge fund guys are they're really making the money, blah, blah, blah. And it was just like, wow, like, you guys are in the top 1% of earners in society, and you're still complaining about money, and now you're saying it's the hedge fund guys. And I think at that point I was like, I bet you if I get to the hedge fund guys, they're going to be looking to someone else and saying, no, these guys are the one that are making the money. So it's like there's something else at play here. So when I actually fully started my full-time graduate role, I defo came in with like, I need an escape plan.
Okay, interesting. Was that conversation that you had with some of the seniors like a turning point? So you had the video you heard about from Nissi, somebody?
Natural Nissi. And then you had this. Was there like something always running in your mind that like, this is not the be all and end all? Like, career was not the be all and end all? Yeah, I think so. And I think that it was. And also one of the books I read that was quite pivotal for me was The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. And at the time as well, like Ali Abdaal was really big as well, and all these people, he was a doctor and then turned YouTuber and was making all this money. And I'm so thankful for that time of especially that 2020, 2021, where all the online gurus were like talking about, I'm making this, I'm making that. I'm so thankful that I was in a early stage of my career at that point, because I could see other examples before getting too sucked into the whole corporate career wave. Okay. And seeing all of those examples did make me know that actually there's probably another life out there that I think would actually suit me better than just trying to climb up the corporate ranks.
Did you ever plan to make MD or to like go all the way?
By the time I started? No. Okay. My plan actually was to make VP, because in my mind I was like, if I make VP then I leave, then it'll be easier to come back, because like I've got at least like 10 years of experience. Okay. So I had this like, I'm naturally a very risk averse person, so that was the plan. But MD, no. Because you would also, when you get into these places, right, you sometimes you glorify them. Once you get there and you see what their lives are like, you're just like, I don't just want to be stuck in some glass box like all the time, and my kids tell my assistant to get my kids stuff and still have to like can't go on holiday because this transaction is happening and blah blah blah. Like the lifestyle, as I looked up to people who were in the ranks that I would be rising to, was not appealing. So at that point, once I got into the bank, I was like, this is not, I don't look at you think, oh yeah, I'd love your life.
Okay. And at the time, so I'm thinking about like you looking to go into banking and like maybe a follow the money type from LSE. That's what people are doing. Did you have a passion at the time? Did you ever have a follow the money or follow your passion decision point, or was it just go for the money? Did you have a passion at the time?
In terms of career?
In terms of life? Like, was there anything that you had at the time, like an interest in, that you were like, if it wasn't for money, I would do this?
No, there was nothing that I had an interest in that I don't think that I was doing, because I was doing YouTube when I went into finance, and that was kind of a passion at the time. Well, that was an interest. It was an interest that I was exploring, and I made it a case in point to still keep this other thing going whilst I went into banking. So much so that I chose my division based off of that. Because at LSE, the division that everybody wants to go into is IBD, not even markets or whatever. Everybody wants to be in the investment banking division because it's the most ruthless division. And we have this like elitist mentality, right? You want to be in the place where it's like, you're most able to brag about what you do. So being in IBD was like, everyone's like, yeah, if you get into IBD, like that's when you're the guy or whatever. And I was just like, no, because I'm not finishing at 3 a.m. and then getting back into the office at 9 a.m. Where's the time for me to do YouTube? There's no time for that. So let me pick something that gives me a bit more flexibility with my lifestyle, so much so that after my internship, I wasn't going to come back, because my internship, I worked like 7 days a week. That was when they say it's a 10-week interview, it truly was a 10-week interview. That was primarily because I wanted to make sure I had the choice.
What was your internship? Like, which division were you
Credit
in?
risk.
Oh, so you went back to credit risk as well, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was in credit risk. So I was like, I put the work in, and it was 8 to 11, and we still worked Saturdays and Sundays. It was hectic. So I was like, I'm not coming back. And then they were like, no, like once you actually start, obviously it's like, this is like a 10-week interview. Once you actually start, we're getting people to like call me and kind of like convince me to whatever. But then I eventually just went back.
All right. So can you tell us a story very quickly of how you came to Dubai? I've heard it before in terms of your one-shot application that turned into a job, but just to bring us up to speed of how you got here.
So I was listening to a podcast. It was by someone who was a digital nomad, and I was really actually interested in becoming a digital nomad at the time. That was kind of what was quite popular, anyways, at that time. So this is like 2021. Yeah, COVID was an interesting time. Anyways, so that was what was quite popular. So I was listening to this podcast on becoming a digital nomad, and my thought was that even in buying my apartment in South Africa was that eventually I'd become a digital nomad, and that would be my base. So I was listening to this podcast, and she was just talking about different places around the world. And then one of the things she mentioned was that, people are in Dubai and they are making 2 times their salary, not even necessarily because they're getting paid more, but because there are no taxes, and just having that conversation. And then I was like, okay, well, let me see if that's true, because I highly doubt that. And so I went on LinkedIn, and I was kind of looking for job roles in Dubai within my field. There wasn't that many, but then there was one, which was at Citibank. So I was like, trying to look for the salary information on Glassdoor. There was no information, nothing like that. So I was like, okay, well, the job actually came out 3 months ago. So I was like, but I was like, let me just apply and we'll see. And so I applied, and I got a response the next day. And they were like, okay, want to do an interview with you? I was like, okay, cool. I'll go through the first stage interview, and I'll basically be like, tell me what the salary is, or I'm not going to finish the application process. And then I did the interview, and then the next thing was like, oh, we want you to come and join us.
You did 1 round?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, okay. And then I just had this dilemma of like, because Dubai was never really on my radar like that.
Had you been here before?
Yes.
Okay, you had.
I had visited, but I thought it was overrated when I visited.
Okay.
And I think from a tourist perspective, I think it is, I wouldn't say it's overrated, but I understand now why I had that perspective. But when you're actually living here, it's a very different experience.
How so?
You don't think so?
No, I do agree. I actually asked Tayo a similar question, but yeah, why don't you tell us, what is the difference between tourist Dubai and resident Dubai?
Because as a resident, I think the best things about Dubai that I love is just how easy it is to get things done, and like the convenience in Dubai. And as a tourist, you're not necessarily enjoying those conveniences. You're not enjoying the conveniences of, like as a tourist, you're probably going out every day. You're going to the beach club, you're going to see the birds, you're going to the Dubai Mall. When you're actually living here, and you can call someone to pick up your laundry, call someone to clean your shoes, get your food, order something, and it's here in 15 minutes. You can get cleaners, and you're being exposed to other people who live here and their stories and their journeys. You're not necessarily doing that as a tourist. You're just enjoying, and usually you're probably also just enjoying with other tourists. But as a resident, the experience is definitely different.
Yeah, I actually very, very much agree. And it kind of brings me on to my next point. I think last time we spoke, I said that you are a high agency person, right? Which is essentially someone that happens to life, as opposed to someone who lets life happen to them. Like they kind of shape their own reality instead of accepting just what is given to them, right? I think that's one personality trait that you see a lot with people in Dubai. What would some of the other personality traits that you think are commonly seen with people here?
Oh, people here. That's actually a difficult question to ask. I think that I don't know if this is a personality trait, but I think there are a lot of people here who are actually not wedded to just Dubai. They are more opportunistic in their thinking. So if it so happens to be that tomorrow their business actually really demands them to be in the US, they will go to the US.
Okay.
If it so happens that, I don't know, their business requires them to be in Asia, they'll be in Asia. Or this might be their base, but they are constantly going to the other places that also require their time or their attention. And that's something that I love about here, because whilst a lot of us who have lived in here or spend a lot of time here, you love it. I just love also seeing people who are not just so attached to just being in one place, because that's what my brand is about. It's not necessarily about leave London, come to Dubai. It's about go to whatever jurisdiction is going to serve you best for whatever goal that you have. And I like that there are a lot of people here who have that mindset as well.
Yeah, no, I like that. I haven't heard anyone say that before.
What do
but
people
it's
usually
very
say?
true. Ambition, people are ambitious in Dubai, that people are very open, happy to help. People share a lot, people want to see you win, people are very motivated, people motivate you. People often say stuff like that. But I think what you said is actually very true. And even geographically, right, like the position of Dubai in the world, and just Emirates and Etihad, if you're talking about the UAE generally, like you can get most places quite easily. And I think they've set it up well to be able to do that in terms of just transport links and air links and stuff like that. In terms of you coming here, did you plan to stay long originally?
The plan originally, I think, was like 1 or 2 years. But I
Okay.
remember when I first, I met a group of friends when I first came, and they were like, yeah, you say that now, but just you wait. And yeah.
Here you are.
Yeah.
Has it changed you being here?
Yeah, 100%.
And on that, are there things that you have done that you wouldn't have done had you stayed in London?
Yeah, I think my whole life right now is a testament to me having moved to Dubai in 2023. So many things, like even my podcast, the name of my podcast, I don't even think it would be as... I don't even know if I would have started a podcast. I don't even know if I would have named it Building Wealth Without Borders if I didn't have this Dubai element to it. Because as I was saying, being in Dubai, I met so many people who were literally building wealth without borders, they were here, but their businesses is over there. And then they're also doing this in another place, and they're doing this in another place. So I think that whole identity, or that vision and mission of like encouraging people to build wealth without borders was cemented here in Dubai. I don't think I would have quit my job if I wasn't in Dubai, because I think that Dubai gave me itchy feet to because I was seeing so many young people be so successful. I was just like, this is the time for me to take the risk and actually do something. So it pushed me. The people that I've met here have inspired me. The podcast studio and workspace that were opening up, that wouldn't have been possible to do in the UK, because even on the openness stuff that you were talking about, people are way more willing here because everything is still developing. So you have early movers advantage here like nowhere else. And it's actually, because you can have early movers advantage, let's say in other places in Africa, but the infrastructure might not be there to support you to do what you want to do.
Yeah.
Whereas here you can have early movers advantage and the infrastructure is still here. The capital is still here. The people are here to actually make it happen. So yeah, Dubai has definitely changed my life a lot in the last three years.
Interesting. Okay, no, thank you for that. You spoke about just now quitting your job. And I want to know, because a lot of people look and consider quitting their job. Was there obviously you had investments outside of work, you had projects you're working on outside of work. Was there a specific moment or deal that, went through, or something that you figured out that made you think, I can actually do this full time and I don't need to have a full-time career?
I think there's a couple of things. I mean, I'm not actually necessarily the biggest advocate for people quitting their jobs the way I did. I feel like...
And how did you do it?
How did I do it?
When you say the way you did, how was that?
As in, just in general, I don't think everybody should just go around quitting their jobs to just try out entrepreneurship. Because I think if you really like the job that you have and you're getting compensated what you think is a fair wage, and let's say you have a good work-life balance and stuff, then that's not a bad deal, especially if you can then build things on the side. Maybe if you want to, I would encourage people to weigh up that option as well, rather than just quitting your job in the way that it's romanticized, because it's actually really difficult, and it's also very difficult to get into a corporate job where you actually are liking it and enjoying it and you think that you're compensated well. I'm just saying that because people come to me and be like, oh, like, I'm really enjoying my job and stuff, but I just, like, maybe should I quit? I'm just like, no. Like, why? What is it that you, and especially people who don't even have ideas, they don't even know what they would do otherwise or how they would monetize what they would do otherwise. You just want to quit because you're seeing people quit. But for me, I had already been investing beforehand. So I'd built up, other streams of income. I'd built up passive income streams. I had an apartment that was fully paid off. I had other properties that were bringing in passive income. So my worst case scenario was to live in a extremely luxury development in Johannesburg where I have a gym, a pool, a restaurant, a spa. Like, my worst case scenario was great. So I was like, well, if that's my downside risk, if that's my worst case scenario, then why not take the risk?
Okay, interesting. So what was the thing that happened, or maybe the deal that personally went through for you that made you think, I can actually do this like full time?
I think it was probably more of a push out factor rather than like a pull. One, I had to wait till it was 1 year of anniversary of working in Dubai, because when a company relocates you, if you leave before a year, you actually, a lot of the times, you'll have to pay back some of the stuff that they've paid to bring you out here, so like immigration and stuff like that. So I had to wait a year. And then I think also just the culture, I didn't really love the work culture. So
interesting.
That pushed me out.
So more of a push than a pull. And then when you then went full-time on your entrepreneurship journey, was there a deal or an event or a moment that took place that you were like, okay, this validates me leaving, like this makes sense and I was right in my decision to leave?
I think this whole year.
Okay.
Yeah, so...
And what are some of the highlights?
I think I'm finally at a place where, like, what I do for work, though is it hard? What I do for work, it's just fun. Like, I feel like my life is fun. Like, I just do what I love, and I'm able to make money from that. And I think one of the things that I would tell myself, even though I believed it, I just didn't know how, was that, like, I am smart enough to figure out how to make money doing the things that I love. And I would just keep reaffirming that to myself as I was leaving. But the first 6 months, I was like, oof, I don't know. I actually felt like I was underworked my first 6 months after leaving, especially when I relocated to South Africa, which is one of the reasons why I left, is I felt like I'm not actually working hard enough. But that was also because I didn't know which direction to go. But now I feel like I just wake up and it's like, okay, we're gonna go to the podcast today. Like, I'll do work today. I can do whatever I want. Like, I have freedom. I have choices. And so now I'm like,
choice.
Yeah, that's why I defined wealth as choice, because I can wake up and choose to do whatever it is that I want. And so now I'm like, yeah, this was so worth it.
Okay, let's talk about borderless wealth. Can you take us back to the moment you were in South Africa and a realization that you had about where you were and how far away you were from your dreams?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that really shook me up when I went on this trip, so I was actually watching Blood and Water. I was like, oh, this place looks cool. Let's go. So I went to like see house tours or just houses and stuff like that. And I would see houses and I'm like, oh my God, this is sick. Like, crazy. I bet this is like £2 million. I bet this is like £4 million. And it would be like 300K, 500K. And I was like, wow, because...
This Joburg or
this was in Joburg.
Okay.
Joburg and Cape Town is a little bit more expensive, but it's still relatively cheap. And I was just like, wow, like, when I would go on like walks through, I don't know, have you done these things where you just go on walks through nice neighborhoods, to get inspo, right? When I would do that in the UK and I'll put like, or Rightmove Zoopla to kind of see the prices, I'll just be like, okay, like, yeah. What do I even need to earn to be able to put down, $1 million on a 10 million? Like, it just felt like it was just so far away. Like, I would be inspired on one hand, but then on another hand, I'm just like, not even that, like, this is what I'm saying as well. Like, not even the MDs could afford to live here. So it's just like, it was close, but it felt so far away in terms of like achievability. But then going to South Africa, I was like, actually, it's like, it doesn't have to cost 10 million pounds to get the level of house that I want. It doesn't have to cost 2 million pounds. It doesn't have to cost £1 million, right? And so that was when I sort of started to wake up to the fact that actually, you know what, like, the life you want might actually be affordable to you maybe now, or maybe even in 5 years' time, just not in the borders that you're currently in. Okay. And that was kind of like the realization that I had.
Yeah, no, thank you. Did you plan to live in South Africa for a long period of time, ever?
For a bit, yeah. Maybe like 1 or 2 years, I think.
Do you think you could live there now? Or at some point in the future?
Not with kids. So if it's pre-kids, yeah.
Okay, fine. In terms of, again, you looking at building wealth within borders and outside of certain borders, you've spoken before about not seeing a passport as like an anchor to one place, right? And I think that is like a real mindset shift. A lot of people, when they get a passport of another country, or they have a passport because they were born somewhere, it's almost as like, okay, now this means I can live in that country. But you sort of see it differently, that no, now this means I can go to more places. Like there's something that you said before, which is like taking, I don't know what you call it, but like taking certain trips to other countries as like, what do you call it? Like
wealth building trips?
Wealth building trips. That's probably an easy one. But what is a wealth building trip? Because, for example, that is one way of like seeing your passport actually as like a tool and not like an anchor to one place, right?
Yeah, I think that, so previously when I used to travel, I'd go to places like, let's say I'll go to Morocco, I'll go to a resort, and you get to the resort and it's all British people. And so you're leaving the UK, but then you're just going to be with UK people in a different jurisdiction. Your reality or your perception of what the country is like is not actually reflective of what it's actually like, because you're not actually anywhere close to the reality of what it is. So you don't see the pitfalls, you don't see the opportunities, you only see like the good parts, and a lot of those good parts are just owned by other Europeans anyway. So you think that you're escaping and you're experiencing Jamaica, for example, but really and truly you're just going to the white man's version of Jamaica. And so you don't really get to expose yourself to what's going on in different places. And so South Africa was my first trip where I was like, you know, we're going to enjoy, but let's also go do property tours. Let's also actually speak to locals.
How did your travel buddies feel about that?
They're great.
Yeah?
Yeah, people around me are very similar.
That's why you need to have the right friends.
Yeah, yeah. So we did other things that were like different. We I lived in South Africa for 6 months. I still haven't even done a safari. But we did other things. And that was just opening up, you know, different ideas of like what's possible and stuff. So I think with passports, especially when you come to this region now and you meet lots of Filipinos, Indians, Nigerians, and you realize that they don't have the ability to just travel to different places. And I was even frustrated on some of their behalves, because I'm just like, oh, let's just go to this, like with one of my friends, like, let's just go. She has a South African passport. I was like, oh, let's go to this, let's go to that. And she was like, okay, but like I kind of have to check first and do this and do that. And I was like, why? We'll just turn up, and when we get there, like they'll let us in.
Is it visa free for her?
Yeah, and she has to do all of this stuff. And she's like, oh, they're asking me to send 6 months of bank statements, and I need to have at least this much in my account. And I was like, wow, like, and those of us who have passports and we're just keeping it there, doing nothing, or only thing you know is to go to Ibiza or go to DLT Malta when there's a whole world out there for you to explore. So I just kind of see it as like, especially when you grow up in a low income household, sometimes you kind of feel like what wealth is being passed down to me, but a passport, a British passport, a Canadian passport, like I literally have 3 different passports. Like that is wealth. That is something that some people, even those who are wealthy, like I have friends who have lots of money, but they struggle because they have a Nigerian passport, and now they're going to all these Caribbean islands trying to get an additional passport so they can actually experience choices, because they don't have choices. Like they have the money, but they don't have the choice to leave the country. So I feel like a passport, especially a good one, like is access.
When you say good,
yeah, because there are passports that aren't good. They're weak. Let's call them weak.
Weaker and stronger passports. No, I think that makes a lot of sense. And for example, like even you seeing a passport as something that gives you choice, is a passport wealth? Maybe not, but it can be a route to wealth. Because even for example, you're talking about like wealth building holidays. as we just said, there are passports that allow you to take those, and there are passports that don't allow you to take those, right?
I think a passport is wealth. I think an accent is wealth. I think there are so many
An accent
things.
is wealth.
Yeah, man. Like,
Okay.
because unfortunately, and I think a lot of people don't like when I say this because they feel like it's me being, they think, what is the word that people use? I don't know. But it is, and the reason, I don't think it's actual wealth, but it gives off the illusion of wealth. If I came and if we meet someone who speaks in the Queen, right, that sort of English, you're going to make the assumption that, oh, this person probably is wealthy. And because of that, you're going to treat them differently. In Dubai, I could show up to places with me and someone else that's from Nigeria. When they hear my accent versus that Nigerian person's accent, the Nigerian person could be wealthier than me, and they might treat me differently because they will assume something different about me because of my accent, right? And so even just like a passport is wealth as well because of education, like being able to be in the UK and you have access to the best universities in the world, or being in the US to the best universities in the world. So like Dubai thrives off of saying that we have British educated teachers. We have American educated. You can be from I'm going to name a university, but I don't know. You can be from the worst university in the UK, but they're still going to say this is a British educated teacher. And you will then be favored more than, I don't know, a teacher that was educated in, I don't know, Russia, for example, right? So all of these things, unfortunately, and I think one of the unfortunate things about wealth is because even when I've spoken about this, people are trying to give me slack. I was like, whatever you think, like, I don't actually really care because no, I don't. Because go to Nigeria, even in Nigeria, a place, even then, if you have an accent, like that's why we watch all those movies where people go to America and they come back with a British accent. Why do they do that? You went for 2 weeks and you came back. Why? Because you are trying to convey a level of wealth or a level of establishment. Yeah, you're trying to convey something to other people so that they treat you differently, right? So these things, they exist. Not all of them are fair, but they exist. And I'm honestly of the opinion of like, when you can clock the game, you should 100% play it.
To leverage that. And I think it's actually got me thinking, like, there are certain things that are like definite wealth, but there are routes to wealth or tools to wealth or wealth builders, and a passport, a currency actually, definitely, and an accent are definitely can be included in those as well. What would you say to people in terms of borderless wealth building? What would you say to someone who says, especially someone like yourself, that it's exploitative to, from one jurisdiction, take like a strong currency like the British pound and invest it in a South Africa or a Kenya, for example? I've heard people say it's sort of like you're playing Monopoly with your friends, right? And you have the greenhouses and the red hotels, and you're playing your game, and that's sort of like the economy. And then you have someone else that comes in with like the same currency but like different colors, and it like matters more, it means more, and they buy a lot more of the greenhouses and red hotels and leave a couple of scraps for you and your friends to play with, and obviously it ruins the game. What would you say to someone that says you are investing in multiple jurisdictions around the world using your British education, your British Canadian passport, and your GBP, going into other jurisdictions and economies and kind of messing up the game? What would you say to someone that said that?
I think that is I get where people come from with that, but I think it's a very uninformed and uneducated, and let me not say uneducated. I think it's a very uninformed and unbalanced perspective. And the reason that I say that is because on the one hand, right, a lot of, let's say, for example, we're both Nigerians, right? A lot of Africans, they will be like, oh, you guys, you go to the UK, you get, even the international students, you guys, you go to the UK, you get education, you make all this money, come back and rebuild Africa, come back and rebuild Africa. And then it's like, okay, well, if we're going to come back and rebuild Africa, what money are we going to bring back into the economy? We're going to bring in pounds. So is that exploitative? And I think the issue with that, and I think that this region is such a good example of why I think that whole notion is nonsense, is because at the end of the day, a lot of these places where people are going to, like, let's take South Africa, for example, or other places with a weaker currency. A lot of these places that we are going into, their economies need more money. South Africa has an unemployment rate that is almost 50%. The economy needs more money. The economy needs more jobs. The problem is that when we, as outsiders, are bringing wealth into the country, it's only going into the hands of a select few number of people, and they are not sharing that wealth with the wider economy. So all of that wealth gets concentrated, or let's say you look at Cape Town and only a certain part is being developed, but actually the rest of the people who are just your everyday, maybe Black South Africans, they're not receiving the benefit of that. But also, let's just say, like, a lot of people, like, you guys get out of Cape Town, get out of Cape Town. All of those Uber drivers, they're not going to have a job. All of those restaurants, because the people who are spending the money are these people who are coming externally and bringing in their other currencies to spend. So what actually needs to happen is that the government needs to put things in places. For example, when it comes to rent, right? Because these are the actual practical things that affect the everyday people. When it comes to rent, maybe there are certain places that if you're coming internationally, you can't rent in certain areas, or there's rent caps, or okay, you can rent maybe a certain portion, but a certain portion has to get allocated for our people. If you look at, like, for example, in Thailand, you can't actually own land as an international investor if 51% of your company, I think, is not owned by a Thai person. So wow. that is the way you start tying the economic prosperity that is coming into the country to your own people as well, so that they reap the benefits. This whole region is built off of the fact that off of the back of international money that is coming in. But what happens is that the local people are not complaining 24/7 because they go to school for free. The government gives them maternity leave. The government gives them grants to start business, so they can actually see the benefits of all of these people who are flocking into the country. The local people are also seeing the benefits. But when it comes to places like Africa, etc., the local people, they are seeing some of the benefits, like they employ, like some employment and some jobs, but it's not being spread out enough. So I don't necessarily agree with the notion that, oh, you're making the country worse. I just think that the country has to put things in place such that if you are going to come and enjoy the fruits of our country, that you also have to, make sure that the local people are being benefited. And a lot of the time, like, for example, in South Africa, I'm a net contributor. Like, everything I do, I spend money in the local supermarkets. I spend money, my photographers, everything that I was putting money into the hands of local Black South Africans, and I'm not taking anything from it, like, economically. It's not like like, for example, an immigrant moving over and now they're using free healthcare resources and now they're taking jobs from other South Africans. I'm not doing that. I'm a net contributor, right? But I think I'm actually really quite passionate about that, because I think that people put the onus in the wrong places, because really and truly, a lot of people who are kind of like, get out of our country, the country would suffer, because this is basic economics. You need more inflow into the country. The country actually need more resources, not less. And so take advantage of the fact that the people want to come to your country, but just make sure that your government puts things in place such that the local people also benefit as well, just like they're doing in Dubai.
No, thank you for that. Like, I 100% agree with you. I think one of the lessons of history and of economics, and you can see it from, like, the book The Wealth of Nations, Adam Smith, like, being an outwardly looking, globally minded economy is the best way to be. And you need to specialize in certain areas. You need to specialize in the areas that you're good at in terms of production. And in other areas, you need to allow there to be an inflow of resources, talent, capital from other parts of the world. Like, that is how one economy goes from one level to a higher level. And as you quite rightly said, that's what we've seen in this region. So if somebody wants to build wealth on no borders, is it best to start investing domestically and then going international? Or would you advise that someone just go global first, depending on what the opportunity is?
I think it depends on what kind of investor you want to be, and therefore where the opportunities are for the things that you want to invest in. Let's say, for example, if you wanted to invest in tech and you are based in Cameroon, then, I mean, I don't know what the Cameroon tech scene is like, but you actually may prefer to actually invest in the US, where the tech scene is booming, where the biggest companies in the world are tech companies, and they're all based there. You might want to start there. If you wanted to invest in property, and you're currently in Lebanon and they are going through a devaluation of the currency, etc., then maybe you would think, oh, actually, maybe not invest in Lebanon. Maybe let me invest in Dubai. But if you're in the UK and you want to invest in property, and the market is quite mature and you can kind of almost see that the market property prices tend to double every 10 years, then you might want to start in the UK. So I don't think I think when it comes to like building borderless wealth, there's no right and wrong way to do it. You just always have to start with, what is my situation? What am I trying to do? And is there a place that is better for me to do that thing? I think that's just it. Yeah, I think that's just it.
So let's say you had someone that's like 21, 22 in, this is like a wealth warrior, 21, 22 in their first year of their corporate job.
Okay.
They don't have enough money to buy a property in the UK, but they want to begin to buy property. And they say, okay, I'm going to buy property in, let's say, Kenya, and I'm going to use the savings I have, which is too small to get into the UK market, and I'm going to go into a developing economy and start there. Would you advise them against that? Or would you just say, actually, that's a pretty good way of beginning to build an additional stream of income?
You know, because you want me to be, you know, politically correct
No,
and
go
nice.
ahead.
So, like, if you don't have enough money to invest in property in the UK, I don't know what the economy looks like everywhere, but if you don't have enough money to invest in the UK, I actually think the barrier to entry to become an investor in the UK is quite low.
Okay.
And the reason why I say that in property,
okay.
the reason why, especially if you're wanting to become an owner, and the reason why I say that is because the amount you can, when you're going into developing regions, by the way, mortgages are not easily accessible. The interest rate in South Africa at the time when I was going to buy was around 11, 12%. The UK is what right now is trending down towards 4%. Over here, you're looking at, let's say, between 4.5 to like 5 or so percent. So when you're going into developing regions, mortgages might not be an option. And so if you want to buy an entire, because if you don't have enough to invest in the UK, I'm going to assume that you have less than £30,000. And are you going to get a house in a good area that's going to get you good returns for £30,000 in Ghana? I don't think so. So I would say that actually, if you can't invest in the UK, I think you should either you switch your strategy and you don't go for ownership, and maybe you do like rent to rent or something like that until you stack up your money. Or you probably just need to explore the UK a bit more, because there are places that you can get into for very low prices. Like there are houses in the UK that you can get for 70k. And then if you're then using a mortgage on top of that, how much are you going to put down? Not that much. And also the other thing you have to think about is when you're earning in a different currency, what is that currency going to do for you, right? So let's say you're earning in Naira, but are you going to live on Naira? Because if you then convert that Naira back to GBP because you're still living in the UK, what's that money going to do for you? If it's that you're building up something, maybe that's your family's going to move there at the end of the day, or you're going to move there at the end of the day, then that might be a good use. But if the cash flow is not even enough that it's meaningful in your currency that you're actually living and spending in, it needs to make sense. Because I know that there are some people, I remember I watched this girl and I learned a very interesting lesson from her, because I think she had around 50,000 saved, and she went to go start like a restaurant business in Nigeria, and she put all of her savings into it. She had a great job, great life in the UK. She put all of her savings into it, but the Nigerian economy tanked. The currency devalued massively, and it was like the money she was making from her restaurant, even if the restaurant was doing well, it still couldn't even cover her mortgage in the UK, because now you're converting Naira to pounds. So it's like, yeah, like if you're earning in pounds and you're living on Naira, that's great. But if you're earning in Naira and you're trying to live in pounds, it has to be a lot of Naira for it to make sense for you in pounds. Yeah. And I do have friends here who their businesses are in Nigeria, and they're living great here, which is a stronger currency than, and their business is in Naira, but that's because they're making a lot of it. So yeah, I would say that don't just rush to try and start building borderless wealth. You really have to think about your situation and what actually makes sense.
Okay. One of the things that has helped you to build borderless wealth is something you've spoken about a lot, which is being liability light. So I think you can drive, right?
I can.
But
I have a license.
Okay, so you have a You have a license, but you've never owned a car.
Yes.
You don't have a personal mortgage.
Nope.
You don't have any pets.
No.
Okay.
I was going to say my brothers are pets, but my brother has a dog, but no, I don't have any pets.
Okay. And that has been a real strength for you in terms of being able to pivot quite quickly and be quite nimble in the way that you've moved around the world.
Mm-hmm.
But how would you advise people who are not liability light? They have kids, they do have a mortgage, they are somebody that has quite deep roots maybe in one jurisdiction. How would you advise that kind of a person who listens to yourself and your guests and says, well, I actually want to do this, I want to be more international in my financial endeavors?
I don't think I would be the person to advise them, because I don't know what I would say, because
Okay.
that's so far away from my predicament that like my only decision making fact, I don't even know if I don't really have much of a, I need to think about this and that. I don't think about all of those things. So, because I mean, if you have got kids, you got to think about their schools, their friends, their this, their that. My advice to them would actually be find someone who's in a more similar position to them that has done it. But what I will say is that there are many people who are a bit more asset heavy who have made the move. I mean, Dubai is full of those people. Like a lot of people who move here are like young families who move, and they're usually young families who are doing quite well. So they would usually already have a mortgage and a car in their home country, and they've done it. And I would say to them to go and find those people and ask them, because I'm not the best person to speak to about that. Or they should come speak to you.
Me? Yeah, let's have a chat. No, I think I do think in that regard, I think it then comes down to risk and your risk appetite. Because, and it's something I've spoken about on this podcast before, the more responsibilities you have, generally in one's mind, the less risk that they can take. Now that is true to an extent, but if you are an ambitious person, there are things you want to do with your life. I think there is a way that you're always thinking about the the responsibilities that you've taken on in a way that you could pivot to go towards your dreams, to go further into, the areas you want to move into easily. I think then it becomes more of a mentality thing and more of a mindset thing. I've spoken before about literally like the week I was leaving the UK, somebody said to me like, you're so brave. Like you're just so brave to move your spouse and your family halfway across the world. And I was just like, really? And they were like, yeah, like I could just never do it. And I just remember like that was one moment that I just remember thinking like, is this a bigger deal than I think it is? Like, is this a real major life decision? Obviously it was, but it was the first time I actually thought that maybe this is like a lot bigger than I gave it credit. I
think it is at your stage with the family and stuff, because I think that a lot of people, once that plants them and that roots them when you have kids, a wife, a house, a car, it's enough of a reason to just be like, some people move into their first home and they buy their first property and they're like, this is my forever home. I'm forever going to be here.
Yeah, see that I don't agree with. And you were going to say something that it's enough of a reason to stay, to settle, to, I'm not saying that's how you're going to finish your sentence, but that's, I think, the way that, and that's why I said it becomes more of a mindset thing. A lot of people, you bought a car, you bought a house, you had a child, you fell in love, so you got married, and so suddenly you stop pushing, like suddenly you stop wanting more out of life. And I think the truth of the matter is, I think a lot of people do think that way, but some people just don't. I don't, and a lot of the people that you see moving here also don't, right? So I think that's something that people have in common.
But also I think it's a reminder for those who don't have all of these things and are liability light to do all the things that you want to do, because you don't have to consult with anyone. You don't have to care about what school your kids are going to go to, how your partners, or even if you have a partner, you still might have to have a conversation about it. But like, you have a lot more flexibility. There's a lot less things you can think about. And if it doesn't work out, the risk, the downside is not as deep as when you have other people kind of depending on you. So you should take the risk if you have the opportunity to.
Lamide wants to take over my podcast. Or marry someone with dreams as big as yours.
I think people struggle to find that. I think that's a harder thing to do, because I speak to people all the time who really struggle to find people that have a global mindset, especially in the UK. I think people really struggle to find partners with a global mindset.
Possibly.
Even my brother, his wife was more pro Dubai for like a very long time, and he just didn't get the vision. Obviously, they made the move maybe like 2 years ago or last year, and now he's like so globally minded.
Yeah.
But I know how much of a struggle it was to get him to see life outside of the norm.
Yeah.
So it can be difficult.
Yeah, no, I think in a situation like that, then it's very much like push and pull, right? It's the partnership of marriage or whatever you want to call it. So you are liability light, but asset heavy. So Lamide, how many streams of income do you have? See, that sigh is already, some people, they have one, they don't, if you ask, they say one, you're sighing because you need to make calculations and do arithmetic, but please, we'll give you time.
I don't think I'm going to be able to calculate it and give you like an actual proper answer.
God is good.
When I run my finances, I think I have like 6 lines.
Okay.
That like record income from this, income from that, income from that, income, and then I have an other, and then I just put all the other stuff in there because
it's good. Was that always your plan? Did you always see, because some people, they see having a job only as like a massive risk. And then other people just, maybe they're around friends or family that have other streams of income, so they end up accumulating a few here, and then they end up without necessarily having planned to be that way with just a few. What was your route?
Yeah, I mean, like, it was very, I think from 2020, because 2020 was when everybody started shouting, COVID was when everybody started shouting multiple streams of income. And so I definitely was very intentional about making multiple streams of income. And I remember I was watching like one of these finance people that you do, and she was describing having one stream of income like a table, and if you have one stream, if you cut off that stream, then that table falls. But if you have a table that has like 3 different legs or 4 different legs or 6 different legs, if you cut off one leg, that table would probably still stand. Even if you cut off another leg, that table would probably still stand. So I saw very quickly that, yeah, actually that's a great analogy, and it's very risky to just have one stream of income. And I'm grateful to have never been like made redundant and stuff like that, but I know that is a very common thing, especially in this current economy. People in the UK will be made redundant left, right, and center. So I was always very intentional about, creating multiple streams of income. Yeah. Okay. But I do think that my multiple streams come kind of from one thing. So specializing and concentrating on one thing can allow you to build multiple streams rather than like, oh, I have a drop shipping business and I have a hair business and I do nails and then I'm a nurse and this and that. I think if you have something like that can just be also confusing. And a lot of the times you won't actually focus in on the streams that could actually do very, very well.
That's actually really powerful, because I think it was Hormozy that said something along those lines. I think it was him, but essentially, and it's interesting because we've been talking about choice a lot, and it was essentially that to build wealth, you need to limit your choices. You need to like go all in on one thing, or maybe like a very small set of things, right? Be known as a specialist, or just gain specialization and reputation or whatever in one thing. And when you then have a certain amount of money, and some people often say it's like $100K or $250 or whatever, when you have a certain amount, you can then begin to diversify and sort of use choice to then multiply that essentially, which is, I guess, similar to what you just said. In terms of being in different countries and being in different jurisdictions, has that come at any personal cost in terms of friends and family, and really building like deep connections? Or have you not found that?
I think that more so, I guess, with friends, I feel like sometimes when I catch up with them, I realize that I miss out on like key things that have happened that they felt like, oh no, we didn't want to tell you that because we know you're busy, kind of thing. Or sometimes I just see them having fun. I'm like, oh, I wish I was there. But I think, I guess probably from a friendship standpoint, but I don't think that is necessarily just because you are moving across borders, because I think that you can move across borders and still maintain really good relationships with your friends, or whoever it is. You just have to be very intentional about it, because you could also, your friend could live down the street and you could still feel very far from that friend, and you can still not know what's going on in their lives. So I think that it's just because it removes that convenience aspect, you have to put in a bit more effort. Other than that, no, I think I'm pretty lucky in that aspect.
Okay.
Than maybe other people who move internationally. In the sense that, for example, one of the areas that a lot of people struggle with when they're moving a lot is like relationships, like romantic relationships. That can be quite difficult when you're constantly on the move. But yeah, that hasn't been my case.
Okay, fair. So you have bases in the UK, in the UAE, in South Africa. What are the positives of each place? Like, what do you get from each place? So, for example, at the moment, there's a lot been said in the news about the UK, what people don't like about it. But I do think, and I think you said similar things before, like to begin, whether it's a business or a career, it's a good place to begin. Even to start a family, many people say, like, because of certain things that the government put in place, or just because of how the ecosystem is, it's a good place to start stuff. It may not be a good place to scale stuff, which is what I've heard a lot of people say.
Yeah.
But in your view, what would you say you get from the UK that you don't get from South Africa, that you don't get from the UAE?
So I had a whole chart on this. I created it for like one of the courses that I have on like financial independence, and there's a couple of different things. So it was like a traffic light system. So weather wise, I think I would say Dubai is like a yellow, South Africa is like a green, the UK is a red.
Okay.
Taxes, the UAE obviously is a green, the UK is a red, South Africa is a yellow.
Okay.
Lifestyle, the UAE is a yellow, South Africa is a green, UK is a red.
Why is the UAE a yellow for lifestyle?
Because it's expensive.
Okay, fine. You can get a lot, but it's at a cost. And to be honest, because I have lived in South Africa before, I know that the cost... See, here the cost of labor is relatively low. The cost of goods is relatively high. In South Africa, the cost of both labor, services, goods is relatively low. So, okay, I get you on that.
Yeah. So I said weather, I said taxes, lifestyle.
You have red, right?
Of course.
Yeah, red. Okay.
Massive red.
I love it, but red. Yeah.
I think for me, obviously, one of the other factors I looked at was family and friends. So UAE was a yellow, UK was a green, South Africa was a red. And I can't remember what some of the other factors were, but those are like, you can kind of see how that plays out.
That's really interesting. I didn't know you had that chart, because it aligns with one of the questions I wanted to ask you, which is, what are some of the other cities at the moment, or countries, that are attractive for somebody looking to set up a base? So could you apply this red, amber, green model to other countries or cities in the world?
I think that you have to find that out for yourself.
Okay.
Because it depends on what you are optimizing for. There are some places that people say are great, right? So there's one place, what is the place in Asia that everyone's in? Maybe Malaysia? Like people say it's really good, or Bali, Thailand. I would not move to those places. Anywhere that I can't find plantain, I can't easily find like someone to do my hair. I'm not gonna go. That might be a green for, some other people that be like, that's a great place to move to. But for someone like me, I wouldn't go to somewhere like that, because I have to be extremely comfortable in whatever place I'm moving to. Whereas for someone else, maybe you could go there, you might love it, right? But I remember
me with no plantain.
I don't know. You might, I don't know. You might be able to live with it. Even in South Africa, there was a drought of plantains, and I wasn't happy about that. But I have a friend who she lived in Bali, and she'd have to fly to another country to like get her braids and then fly back. And I'm not doing that. So I think that you have to kind of optimize it for yourself. So like I have some friends, and they're like UK, Colombia, and the US, and that works for the business that they're particularly building. I don't know what they're doing in Colombia, to be fair, but they said that there's some good people there, or the lifestyle there is good. So I think you have to really figure out what works for you, and you can only do that if you travel. But I think the hotspots that I'm seeing for young people is obviously Dubai, Dubai.
Why not the UAE?
I was going to say the UAE. I was going to say the Middle East, but I don't know if I know that many people who are moving to the other places.
I think it's on the rise.
Happy.
From people I've spoken to, Abu Dhabi definitely is receiving a lot more people, and just the Gulf region, the GCC, Qatar, I hear a lot of people going to nowadays. Saudi, not as much, but more than before. Not so much Bahrain and Kuwait, but I think it's coming. Some like the economic developments in Kuwait, literally in the last couple of weeks, show me or tell me that is also coming. I think maybe 5-6 years down the line.
Maybe down the line. I think that when people ask me about this, I'm always very skeptical, because I feel like for any of these other places to compete with Dubai, they have to let a lot of their moral standards slip. And I don't know if they are willing to do that.
What do you mean by that?
So obviously this is a Muslim country, but a lot of the stuff that makes it comfortable for you and I to exist here and for it to work with for a lot of things that make it comfortable for Westerners to be here, other Muslims are seeing that as you're regressing on the standards that we are supposed to be upholding. And I'm not sure these other places, because Dubai has to do that because they don't have oil money. So there is an incentive to keep these Westerners coming. Whereas some of these other places, like I don't see Saudi, which is the place people go to do their Umrah and their stuff. I don't see them dropping the standards as much to allow people to do what they need to do to be comfortable. Even just changing the work week, right? It used to be Sunday to Thursday, Sunday to Thursday as the work week, but they switched it to Monday to Friday because that aligns with the rest of the world. But really and truly, that they shouldn't allow people to work on Friday, because Friday is the day you go to mosque, blah blah blah. I don't see other regions doing that. So I do think I do hear of people, like I know people who are in Abu Dhabi and stuff, even in Saudi as well. I'm just interested to see how that will match up to Dubai, and if they will do a lot of the stuff that Dubai has done.
Yeah, I think it's a fair consideration. I think when you look at the leadership of the other Gulf nations, you can see a willingness to be open, and it's what we were talking about earlier, right? Like the need to open up to the rest of the world in one way or another. Now that could be on some maybe religious requirements, if you want to call them that, or in terms of economic barriers to entry, but I do see it. I think it's coming, not at the same pace that we had with Dubai and with Abu Dhabi, but I definitely think it's coming. So looking ahead, what is next for you? So you recently announced your new podcast studio and workspace, which I think is a great idea for reasons.
Would you move your podcast there?
See, I'll say yes, but these guys still have to send me this file so that they don't delete it. I'll say maybe, but no, 100%. I think, and one of the reasons I think it's a great idea is because we spoke about convenience earlier. I think the UAE, Dubai we've seen a lot of business ideas they've worked because they have catered to the convenience. But I think where the city and where the nation is now, a lot of new ideas, I think, are going to be, and I actually recorded the podcast yesterday with someone and I said a similar thing. A lot of the new ideas, I think, are going to cater to efficiency and to collaboration. And so a workspace, a podcast studio, something like that helps people to get stuff done together and in a better way, I think is exactly what we need. But yes, tell us about that. What's the vision behind that? And also, what else are you building? 'Cause I know you're always working on one thing or another in the background.
Oh, am I guess. So I think the vision with that is, my co-founder Sheen, she has the biggest podcast in the region, run by like a female. So she has great reach, and yeah, so it just kind of made sense. I think we were obviously running the professional network before, and we were always looking for a space to hold our events, and we could never find a space that was big enough, and the women always wanted to connect for longer and do things for longer. So it was like, why don't we just evolve this into a space that's like multifunctional, I guess. So we have a hub for our women, and then also have a podcast studio because podcasting is on the rise. And then we both have podcasts. So that is coming out. We're hoping to launch in about a month. So if you are moving to the UAE, it's not just for women, but if you're moving to the UAE and you're looking for a workspace where you can find other women who have moved here from all over the world, and you just kind of want to connect with them, professional women as well, then the space is there. And if you're also looking to launch a podcast or to move your podcast to a studio that is centrally located, so we're going to be on Sheikh Zayed Road, then yeah, you can come and check out The Pen by Marina Pearl. We are working next year on really just actively supporting people in actually investing, because obviously a lot of the podcast is focused on education, but I mean, all of that is all well and good, but people actually need things to actually invest into, and so we want to do more in terms of helping people become property owners in Dubai, do more in terms of helping people become angel investors, investing into funds, pulling their money together and investing with others as well. So we're going to be doing a lot more of that next year and towards the end of this year. And yeah, I mean, that's all I have to spill for today.
Okay, all good. No, thank you very much. And thank you for your openness, your candor on today's episode. To finish up, your podcast, and people would probably say I probably shouldn't say this, but your podcast is amazing, right? I think the platform you've given for people to come on and share their stories is, I think, very, very impressive. But more than that, I think the ability that you've given to simplify the stories behind wealth building for average people, normal people, I think is just, it's very impressive. I think it's a terrific job that you're doing, so well done.
Thank you.
What would you say in this period of time, in this season, is your motive, is your objective for putting value into the world? Because I know that you see wealth building not just as an intake, but also a result that comes from helping people, right? And putting value. So what would you say, like, you're focused on in terms of purpose?
Deep question. So I think there are kind of two communities that I'm serving. Someone said this to me the other day, like this, it's kind of the way she perceived my podcast, and I was like, wow, that's actually quite deep. And she was basically saying that, you know, that podcast is going to lift a lot of people out of poverty. And so I think on the one end, just helping people move from just surviving on a daily with their finances and just getting by, or maybe not even getting by, to actually entering into a position where they are comfortable, they are financially stable, maybe they're financially independent, and, you know, on the latter stage, actually experiencing financial freedom, because that's the journey I've been on. So just supporting people in just moving from that. And it just takes a couple different things that you need to learn and practice for you to be able to do that. But then on the other end, just helping to open people's mindsets and their eyes to the possibilities that the entire globe can bring them and give them. And I think as a result of that, I'm not necessarily just focused on Black people. There's not necessarily a Black focus, but obviously I am Black, and so a lot of my network is Black, and then because of that, a lot of my viewers are Black. But if I'm even supporting in helping Black people keep wealth, because I don't know if you've seen that statistic that says that money exchanges itself one time in the Black community before it's handed off to somewhere else. If I'm supporting Black people in building generational wealth, and if I can do, even if I just do 1% and 1% more Black people have wealth and are able to keep that for generations to come, I think that's something. So yeah, that's really it. There's no massive, I don't have like a number or anything like that, but just kind of enjoying what I'm doing and actually practically giving people the information, but also the opportunities to be able to build wealth for themselves and generations to come.
No, you definitely are. Lamide Elizabeth, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast, and yeah, we'll continue the conversation.
Thanks for having me.
Cool.